Okay, so welcome to Open Tuition. Welcome to ACCA's financial reporting paper, formerly known as F7, but now going forward, forever be known as financial reporting. And I'm Chris Barlow. I'm going to go through and take you through the entire course from start to finish. And this video here is just a little introduction in terms of what to go through there and expect with regards to the syllabus. So for those of you who may have studied previously under F7, however long that may have been ago, things haven't changed all that much. Essentially, what we're looking at is just a change in the name of the paper. Okay. We're also going to go through and have a look a little bit about the assumed knowledge and what there is that has been brought forward from the foundation level. So from F3 annual financial accounting. We're going to have a look as well at the exams, so whether that's paper-based, whether that's computer-based, and have a look at the pretty poor pass rates that there are on this paper and try and dissect why that could potentially be the reason. We're going to look at the resources, so what is provided by the ACCA and by ourselves, and then also to go through and finish off, we're going to look at what are the keys to success. What do you need to do to make sure that you can pass this paper? What will you need to do that is different to everybody else? Because everybody else who seems to be doing things aren't doing that well. Okay. Yes, it's one of the more challenging papers, but with the right level of application, you'll be easily able to pass this paper. Okay. So what have we got in terms of the syllabus? 4 parts to it. The first bit is very discursive, very chatty in nature, and it's all about the conceptual and the regulatory framework. So you will have seen this before in your financial accounting paper, whereby you will have learnt the definitions of an asset, a liability, income, expense. You will have looked at the recognition criteria. You will have gone through there and started to look at the qualitative characteristics. So you will have learned the definitions. The difference that you have between what you've seen in financial accounting and what you have now is that word there, apply. You're going to have to go through there and apply that knowledge to specific scenarios within a question. So instead of saying, well, this is the definition of an asset, a resource controlled by an entity as a result of a past event that will bring future economic benefit, you are going to have to turn around and say, well, we have property, plant and equipment. Property, plant and equipment meets the definition of an asset because. Okay, so it's very much more focused on an application of the knowledge that you have that's brought forward from financial accounting. We also need to go through there and look at the accounting for the transactions. So in transactions that you've seen in financial accounting, you've looked at valuing inventory at the lower of cost and net realizable value. You've gone through there and looked at property, plant and equipment, capitalizing the asset, depreciating it, revaluing it, disposing of it. Because what you've gone through and done there is you've followed the rules within the IFRSs and the IASs. So if you so wish, the rules for PPE are under IAS 16. Okay, the rules for inventory are under IAS 2. What you need to be able to go through and do now is to take that prior knowledge, advance it ever so slightly, maybe in some more complicated scenarios, but also we're going to go through there and start to look at new accounting standards. So looking at foreign currency, looking at revenue, looking at discontinued operations. Each of them has an accounting standard number, but don't get focused upon the accounting standard number. You're never going to get any credit for knowing an accounting standard number and knowing that foreign transactions are governed by IAS 21 and that revenue is governed by IFRS 15. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Just know the rules and, more importantly, have a knowledge to be able to apply them. Once you've got that, we then need to go through and look at the analysis and the interpretation of our financial statements. So making the numbers talk. Now, again, this advances what you've seen from financial accounting, because in financial accounting, you effectively just had to go through there and calculate some ratios in a multiple choice question. So gross margin, operating margin, asset turnover, return on capital employed. maybe going through there and working out inventory, receivable and payable days. Does that all sound familiar? Yeah. Well, the good news is that you're going to get credit for calculating those ratios again in financial reporting. Great. However, it gets a little bit more challenging in that you're going to have to go through and make those numbers talk. You're going to have to write the explanation as to why the margin is increased when the sales have fallen, or why has the inventory days gone through and reduced, and therefore what is the impact on our cash flow and our working capital cycle. Okay, so you'll be confronted with a blank page of paper or a blank computer screen if you're doing a computer-based assessment, and you will need to write down the explanation of the movements in the balance or the ratio. Okay, but we'll talk more about that in later chapters. We've then got the big aspect of sort of pulling it all together with regards to the framework, the transactions, and then that's being able to prepare the financial statements. So a statement of financial position, statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, statement of change in equity, statement of cash flows. Don't worry about the notes or anything like that. That's off syllabus. We're focusing on the financial statements themselves. Statement of financial position, profit or loss and other comprehensive income, statement of changes in equity, and is it there, your statement of cash flows. Just be aware we'll need to prepare that for single entities. Okay, so what you've seen again previously in financial accounting, but we'll also need to look at it with regard to business combinations. What on earth? Group accounts. Okay, so you had a very basic introduction to group accounts. So you'll need to prepare a group statement of financial position, a group statement of profit or loss, and other comprehensive income. Okay, the examiner isn't worried about the group statement of change in equity or the group statement of cash flows. We'll save that later for, is it there, your SBR, your strategic business reporting, or was that previously known as P2 in the old days. Okay, so that there on the syllabus is what we're going to cover. You need to have knowledge of the entire syllabus. You cannot cut corners. You can't say, oh, I don't like revenue, so I'll ignore it. Good luck. Yeah, if you ignore anything within the syllabus, it's going to come back and bite you on the backside, and it will catch you out within the exam. And that's one of the reasons the pass rate is so poor. Okay. In terms of that brought forward knowledge that you've got from F3 or financial accounting, you know already the conceptual frameworks, the definitions, like we've said already, of assets, liabilities, income, expense, equity, the different measurement bases. So historic cost, current cost, replacement cost, present value. Oh, it all come flying back at you. Don't worry, you don't need to go back and look at the videos from financial accounting. Oh, no, save your time. We'll go through and look at it here, all within financial reporting. But the more you know, the easier it will become. Published company accounts, you should know what those company accounts look like. If you don't, how on earth did you pass financial accounting? You must have done well. Inventory, lower of cost, net realizable value is effectively it. That's what we're going to recap. Property, plant and equipment, PPE, IAS 16, capitalize, depreciate, go through and revalue upwards, dispose, get yourself a gain or loss. We'll just add bits and pieces to that. We might begin to look at impairments. We'll also go through and start to look as well at government grants that you might receive in return for purchasing assets. But that's just going too far. The assumed knowledge is what you have in terms of the capitalizing, the costs, the depreciation, the revaluation, and the disposal. If you can do that, you're already getting yourself 4 or 5 marks within this exam. It's a good start, isn't it? And we're what? 5 minutes in. If we have a look at other assumed knowledge, ooh, is that assumed intangibles? It is within the financial accounting syllabus, but it's oh so tiny. But if you do remember how to go through there and treat research, how to treat development, then that's a bonus. If not, fear not, we will recap it. Provisions, events after the reporting date, IAS 37 and IAS 10 respectively. So provisions, there's a legal case that's outstanding at the end of the financial year. You are not sure whether or not you should recognise that liability at the end of the year because maybe you're not sure whether or not you have an obligation to make that payment. Okay, so we need to look at the details to see whether or not there is an obligation, if we can measure that obligation reliably, because if we can, we might recognise that provision at the reporting date. It could very well be that at the reporting date, we're not too sure if the condition existed with regards to the obligation of the law case and having to pay out. Or maybe there's something that happens after the end of the year before the financial statements are signed that gives us additional evidence about that condition, and therefore we might have to go back and adjust and therefore make a provision. Okay, if previously we weren't making a provision and only were disclosing a contingent liability. Okay, so again, brought forward knowledge. Brought forward knowledge again in terms of basic groups. So can you prepare the consolidated financial statements? So adding across the assets, the liabilities, income, expenses, 100% on a line-by-line basis. Can you calculate goodwill, NCI, group retained earnings within the group statement of financial position? Can you work out the amount attributable to the NCI and the amount attributable to the parent within the group statement of profit or loss? Am I scaring you already? Possibly. It's like, oh, I can't remember all this, Chris. It's in there somewhere. It will come to the forefront of your mind the more that you get into the syllabus. Okay, so don't panic too much if what I'm saying to you at this moment just sounds like a totally foreign language. Okay, basic groups. Statements of cash flows. It's assumed knowledge. We tend not to see huge amounts of it, but we need to cover it just in case there is a sitting whereby you have to prepare a statement of cash flows. So we'll revise that. And likewise as well, the ratios. Hopefully you know the ratios, you can calculate them. My role now is to take that knowledge and allow you to be able to expand upon that by going through and being able to explain the movement in the balance or the ratio. Okay, so there's a lot to go through within the syllabus. There's a lot of assumed knowledge and there's a lot of new knowledge as well. So you do need to give yourself plenty of time to be able to go through and understand it all. Okay, so let's go through and have a look at the exam. Remember, there's two options now in terms of the exam. You can either do it as a paper-based or a computer-based assessment. We'll look first of all at the paper-based assessment. Paper-based, section A, 15 multiple choice questions, 2 marks each. Okay, so that goes through there and gives you, 30 marks in total for section A. Now, multiple choice questions can test any aspect of the syllabus. It can test you on groups, individual company accounts. It can test you on the individual accounting standards. It can test you on the framework. It can go through there and test you on the analysis and interpretation. So that's why you need to have a good coverage of the entire syllabus. Don't cut corners. Okay. Section B, there are 3 questions there, each one focusing on a particular area of the syllabus. So you could get a question that focuses on, say, PPE. You could get a question that focuses on revenue, and then you could get a question that focuses on leases. Okay. Each of those 3 questions has 5 multiple choice questions within it, all linked to the same scenario or maybe a slight advancement on that scenario, and each of those is worth 2 marks each. So 3 questions, 5 MCQs, that's 15. 2 15 to 30, so there are again 30 marks there in section B. So 30 in section A, 30 in section B, so that means there are 60 marks. And therefore that then means that section C has got the remaining 40 marks available. Okay, so there will be 2 questions, each worth 20 marks each. That will tend to go through there and cover the analysis and interpretation of financial statements as 1 question, and then the other 20-mark question will either be preparation of an individual company set of accounts or the preparation of a group set of company accounts. It wouldn't ask you to prepare the statement of financial position and the statement of profit or loss for the group. It would just ask you to prepare one of them. Okay. What we have seen as well in some of those longer questions in section C instead of getting you just to prepare the full set of financial statements, you might have to go through there and redraft the financial statements. So maybe make corrections to the profits for the year based upon information given within the question. But let's stop there. Okay, just make sure that you know what is within the exam at this moment in time. There we go. Interpretation of financial statements. Preparation of financial statements being the individual or group. Okay. You have then, is it 3 hours and 15 minutes? It used to be 3 hours and 15 minutes of reading and planning time, but it's just all being thrown together now, hasn't it? So you get a full 3 hour, 15 minutes. 3 hours, 15 minutes, there are 100 marks available. So that works out at 1.95 minutes per mark. Okay. Does that make a difference? Yes, it does. It's important to stick to timings within the exam. So you've got the, is it, let's see, in section A, 15 multiple choices worth 2 marks each. So there's 30 marks in total. So you would need to spend 58.5 minutes, so an hour effectively, on section A. You would need to spend, is it then, the similar amount, an hour, on section B. Okay, but remember, split that into 3. So it'll be 20 minutes roughly on each of those 3 questions. If you'd spend all of your hour just on one of the questions and 5 multiple choice questions, disaster. What are you doing? You're missing out on some of the easier marks and some of the other questions later in the exam. Even in section C, each of those is worth 20 marks. Multiply by the 1.95 and that works out, is it, at 39 minutes. So 39 minutes on each of the questions in section C. Okay. That makes sense? Yeah, you'll see more importantly as we go along how important it is to stick to time. The computer-based exam, is it different? No, not really. It's virtually identical in style. So section A, again, still 15 mark or 15 multiple choices at 2 marks each. Section B, exactly the same. Section C, exactly the same as well. Okay, even the same syllabus content. It can't be different, can it? Otherwise, it just wouldn't work. However, just be careful on the computer-based assessment, there is just some additional content. So on top of the questions that you've got there of the 15 MCQs in section A, the 3 questions with 5 multiple choice questions within each in section B, there is additional content. So you will either get 5 single separate objective test questions or multiple choice questions to you and I, or there will be 5 scenario based objective test questions, so like what you see on section B. Okay, it'll be one or the other. Why? What's all this about? Okay, well, if you dig down into the ACCA website and look into the syllabus, you can see the reasons why they put that in there. Okay. These questions are included to ensure fairness, reliability, and the security of the exams. Okay, to make sure that, I don't know, there's maybe no cheating that has gone on, that everything is fairly balanced across all of these computer-based exams. Note, they don't count towards your score. Okay, so if you get them all right, makes no difference. If you get them all wrong, it makes no difference. Will you know which those questions are within the exam? No. Okay, they just appear within the exam, so you still need to give them equal attention as what you would with all of the other questions. Okay, yes, they don't contribute to the result. They're there to ensure fairness. You won't know which questions they are. Okay, so just answer all the questions that are there and worry about this later. But the bonus that you've got here is that instead of just the 3 hours, you've now got the 3 hours and 20 minutes, okay, to go through there and give you the time to be able to go through there and answer those 5 additional questions. So here what you've got now is you've got, is it 1.8 minutes per mark, okay. Just be careful, there are still 100 marks available, okay. Yeah, don't think, well, I've got extra questions, there are extra marks. No, 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 no. There's extra questions, but no extra marks. Okay, so you're given 20 minutes extra on top of the 3 hours to be able to go through there and answer those additional questions that you don't know are going to count or not count. Okay. In terms of the pass rate thing, I've already mentioned. That's rubbish. Okay. Less than 50% of people pass. My word. What's going on? Is it a tough exam? Yes. Okay, but there's a big syllabus. There's lots to learn. So is that the reason why people fail? No. Okay, the reason why people fail is because of a lack of application, a lack of timing in terms of the time they give themselves to study the huge syllabus prior to the exam, a lack of application in terms of practicing exam questions, missing out parts of the syllabus, hoping that this won't crop up, and then it does, then you lose lots of marks. That's disappointing. Okay, but if you follow our instructions, have a look at what other students are saying about what we do, our pass rates will be higher than that. Okay, yeah, if you don't put in the study, if you don't put in the right application, if you don't practice past the exam questions, if you don't cover the entire syllabus, then you'll find yourself in that 51, 52, is it 53% of students who keep failing. Okay, practice, practice, practice. That's the key to success in any of these exams. So it's quite depressing, really, isn't it? Okay, yeah. More than half of the people failed. So be it. It's not going to be you. Okay, you're going to pass. You're going to apply yourself. You're going to practice questions. Do you promise? Sure? Good. Let's move on. Resources. What do the ACCA go through and provide? Well, you know where to find all the information on the ACCA webpage. So it's still there currently as I'm preparing this material, saying F7 financial reporting, but obviously the F7 will drop and it will just become financial reporting for the September 2018 sitting onwards. Okay, June 18 was the last time it would have been called F7. Okay. So remember what you've got there, just two different sets of resources, whether it's computer-based or paper-based. So you will need to click on one or the other to get those resources. Here, what you've got is just the main set of resources, whether it is computer-based, whether it is paper-based. So yeah, you've got the syllabus, the examinable documents. So they're really important to make sure that you're keeping up with any changes that may have happened in terms of what's new on the syllabus, what's been removed from the syllabus, what standards are actually examinable. Okay. There's also, I think it's really useful, some examining advice from the examining team themselves. So go through there and have a look at those. They'll give you some direct, useful tips that will help you attempt the exam. If you're doing the computer-based exam, there's an introductory session there to go through and click on. And then, again, you will have different resources depending upon whether it's computer-based or past paper-based. Okay, so you've got specimen exams under both. You've got past exams under both. And then as an added bonus for the computer-based, because it is a challenge doing it online and getting used to the technology and writing things online as opposed to on paper at home, there is a mock exam there for the computer-based exam. Okay. The one at the bottom, well, second from bottom, technical articles, is really, really useful. Periodically, there will be articles that are written by maybe some of the examining team, maybe by some lecturers from some of the other institutions around the world that will then write about a particular up-to-date topic. Okay, and that can give you a different perspective, a different understanding on that particular syllabus area. So have a look and see what's there. Some really good articles. What are you going to get from us other than me? Class notes, study guide. I'll put together a study guide at some point in time, which will take you through effectively what we've done here. Tuition videos, practice questions, they're there as well. There's some flashcards they've got some questions on. Maybe we might get around to putting some revision videos on at some point in the future. I'm a busy man. I've got a lot on. I'll do my best. And then there's the Ask the Tutor forum. If you've got any questions, technical, speak to me. Ask them on the forum. I will do my best to reply within a few days. Okay, I tend to go through there and check the forum twice a week, once at the weekend, once during the week. Okay, and I'll do my best to go through there and answer those questions that you may have. Okay. Keys to success. I think I've possibly mentioned these already. Make sure you know the basics. If you know the basics well, you can answer any question. Doesn't matter how difficult it may be. That includes the assumed knowledge as well. Okay, if you've got a better brought forward knowledge from financial accounting, you will do better within this exam. Okay, if not, it's just going to take you a little bit of time to brush up on that knowledge, and therefore you'll find it a little bit more challenging initially as you get up to speed, but once you've got there, you'll be fine. Okay, as I've said several times already, full coverage of the syllabus. Don't miss anything out and hope that it won't appear. There's all these multiple choice questions in section A and section B. You know, that's where you can really score some good marks if you have a good, thorough knowledge of the syllabus. In section C, don't just concentrate on getting the hard bits right and trying to get 100% correct. It's not going to happen. Focus on the easier parts, and we'll talk about that as we go through the tuition videos, and focus a little bit as well when we get to the revision aspects as well. Even on the multiple choice questions, there's technique. There's some easier multiple choice questions, so you need to identify those first before you do some of the more challenging ones. Practice questions, so you will need a revision kit from your chosen tuition provider, whoever that may be. Practice those questions time and time again, and when you practice them, try to do them under time conditions to get you ready for the exam itself. Okay, don't leave it until the exam to be the first time that you've done questions under exam timed conditions. Practice them under exam conditions at home, to time and with no notes. Make sure you ask me any questions. Don't leave it until late. Get it in there early and find out the answer, because it could be something simple that you're missing. It could be something that's way too complicated. I'll just tell you just to leave it, ignore it, not worth it. Okay, it does help. So all I'd say is good luck, work hard, enjoy the course, make the most of the resources, and if you do get stuck, speak to me on the Ask the Tutor forum. Okay, see you soon.